Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news, as Manchester United this Sunday morning are linked to a big shock transfer bid for an attacker that we have been in for before. Is it Sunday morning nonsense? We'll talk about that. Also, an injury boost around a player that picked up an injury on international duty. We've also got a really interesting interview that came out yesterday from a Nice manager who's been managed by Sir Jim Ratcliffe, giving an insight as what it's like to be a manager of a club owned by Sir Jim Ratcliffe. We'll talk about that as well. Bruno Fernandez has been talking to the press about moves to Saudi Arabia and also a player he'd like to see at Manchester United. Loads to get into on the show this morning. And of course, it's Sunday, so that means we've got the Sunday night show tonight as well. And we're getting closer to Man United's return to proper football, which I think we're all ready for as well. I'm also sporting one of our new designs. Links in the live chat and in the video description. I absolutely love this one. This is brilliant. Look at the baubles with the numbers on. Treble winners, and then it's got all the baubles and the numbers on it as well. You're going to look cracking with one of these at Christmas. Links in the live chat, and we do ship worldwide. I also just want to say as well, absolutely smashed it yesterday. If you didn't and weren't part of it, there you go. That was the stream that we did all day. We hoped to get to 35,000. We hit 52,000. I'm as speechless now as I was this morning. That is absolutely incredible. £52,300, and there is still more to go on top of that. In an all-day stream for people with for the Marie Curie Centre, which helps people with terminal illness. We do it every year. I'm very bad at celebrating good news, whether it's hitting 1 million subscribers or, you know, managing the Sideman game or whatever. But that is absolutely incredible. So just well done to all of you for getting involved in that yesterday. There's a lot of people out there that try and chop us down with their axe. You know, they say it's a toxic environment. It's the toxic stand. They don't watch. They don't get involved. They don't get involved in the conversation. They've got no idea that we're not fed information by the club, that we're not feeding leaks from the club, that we're not making stuff up, that we're not toxic, that we back the manager, that we just want the club to do well, but we're very opinionated about it, and we deal in real conversation. And yesterday we dealt with a real charity that deals with people who are going to die, the reality of it. Not let's stop cancer, which is great, not let's ignore the fact that people are going to die with these illnesses. Let's face up to the realities of life, that there's people out there suffering who will die, who have family and friends who are going to suffer as well. And there's an amazing charity out there that supports them and helps them through that, the reality of life, which is very much what our community is about. We focus on the good, we focus on the reality, and we do good things, and we ignore the hate and we ignore the toxicity that tries to bring us down. Fantastic community. I'm so proud of it, because we operate in reality and we're good people. And if you're against us, you're basically the baddies, in my opinion, because we do good things. We're just very honest about it, and we don't suffer bullshit. We call it for what it is. We have our focus is Manchester United getting back to the top. We're very honest about that. And if people don't like that, well, you know, you don't have to watch it. But I'm so proud of this community and That's Football for doing what we've done, onwards and upwards. Who knows what we could achieve next year. We've gone from 35,000 last year to 55,000 this year. We might have a year where we do 100 grand one year. I mean, in one day streaming. Absolutely incredible. Thank you very much. Anyway, let's get on with the show. We're going to talk about this this shock transfer sweep. It is a little bit of look, in my opinion, this is a bit of a Sunday morning transfer story. But I mean, to be honest, I've said to this many times over the years. I used to love the Sunday papers as a kid. Some of it was bullshit, some of it was quite good. But this is coming in from a Barcelona outlet. They're saying that Manchester United are ready to offer Anton Griezmann 350 grand a week to move to Old Trafford. The French forward is under contract at Atletico Madrid until 2026, but it's reported that he's got a release clause of just £22 million. 32 years of age, he scored 12 goals in 16 appearances for Atletico Madrid this season. So, look, I mean, it's an interesting story on a Sunday morning. I've got massive issues with it, none more so than to say, I don't want Griezmann at Man United. I mean, you can want him, you can not want him. We can run a poll. We're all about that. But for me, there's no doubt Griezmann's a good player. Forget the stupid wages. He pissed me off massively. This is reality for you. He pissed me off massively a few years ago when he agreed to come to Manchester United in November, and Man United thought they were getting him for 7 months, and then right before he was meant to sign for us, Atletico Madrid got their transfer ban, and he decided to be loyal to Atletico Madrid and stay. Well, that's absolutely lovely if you're an Atletico Madrid fan, but it was absolutely devastating for Manchester United. He walked us up the garden path, knocked on the door and ran away. And I'm not going to forget that. I absolutely loved Griezmann. I thought he was going to be the perfect number 7 for Manchester United. And you blew it. You blew it. So forget about it. I don't want Griezmann at 32. I don't want Griezmann to have a massive wage. I don't want him at Manchester United. That's being ruthless. I mean, this to me would represent every mistake we've made of the last 10 years. Going for a player not in their prime, too late, and paying too much money for it. So I call bullshit on this, because I think United, under whatever ownership model, would normally do that. But I think this has to be, whether it's Qatar, Sir Jim, or whatever, this has to be the sort of deal that you say, absolutely not. I'm sure we'll be offered a deal like this. And if he has got a release clause of £22 million, I'm sure it's the sort of deal United would look at. Let's not forget, we've done Di Maria, we've done Schweinsteiger, we've done Cavani, we've done Ronaldo, we've done Zlatan, we've done Casemiro, we've done Varane, we've done loads of the... We almost do one every year over the last 10 years. This is what we do. We go and get 32-year-old players and give them massive wages to come to Manchester United. But we've got to turn our back on this one. This cannot be a deal that United look at, in my opinion. Mark, just want to say the work you do is unreal. Keep it up. Absolutely superb. Thank you very much, Chris. And flabbergasted why we're going for players who have nearly peaked. It is true, then we need to stop these short-term solutions, says Slow Sports News. I don't see it happening. I really don't see it happening, and I don't think it should happen. I know United want to bring an experienced striker in, and I know that's not exactly easy when you can't get the Harry Kanes and the Victor Osimhens. But this is be a mistake for me. And look, it's not even about his age. He's a good player. I was very impressed with him in the World Cup last winter. He's a good player, and he's having a good season at Atletico Madrid. I'm not dismissing the player. Zlatan was a good player. Ronaldo was a brilliant player. Casemiro's a brilliant player. But they're all coming towards the end. If they're at the top of the mountain, I don't think they're at the top of the mountain anymore. I think they're actually coming down. And that sledge is only going further down. So I think they've gone past their peak. I think they're still very good, but they're on the way down. Why are we buying that? It's not logical. And why would we be forcing the Ronaldos and the David De Gea's out, and the Casemiros and the Varanes and the Sanchos out, to bring in somebody else and give stupid money? We won't do this deal. You know, it's interesting we've been linked to him. You can never say never, but I call bullshit on this. I don't think it's going to happen, and I really don't think we should do it. Having said that, looking at the live chat and the poll, 63% of you are saying no, but that means 37% of you are saying yes, and that's absolutely fine. I am not saying he's a bad player. Not saying he's a bad player at all, but for me, the big thing is I just don't want him at United after what he did to us a few years ago. Not that I'm stubborn or hold a grudge, but I think he had his opportunity to be a Man United player, and he blew it. Will Arnott says, just wanted to say huge congratulations for the charity work yesterday, Mark. 52k will go a long way, and we should be so proud as a community. We should be very, very proud. You're the best. I've said this before. There are imitations out there. There are copiers out there. There are people who do exactly what we do, just because we're so good, and that's absolutely fine. But you're the original gangsters. You're absolutely incredible, and I'm just so proud of it this morning. You've done so well, and it's actually going to be about 55k when we get everything added on. So brilliant. But yeah, look, not for me, not Griezmann for me, for the simple reason he had his chance with us and he blew it. So not for me, but I'll keep that poll open. Now I want to move on to this next bit, but let me just tell you, yesterday morning we were talking about the potential injury to what was his name? Anana. I've made a couple of clangers in the last few days. I don't apologise for them. I'm actually human, so apologies for that. I had a terrible mistake about the 25% thing. I'd had some red wine and I was actually streaming at the time, so I just tweeted it. I don't delete my tweets. I'm not really bothered. Let the haters hate. But we also had this story coming out yesterday about Anana, and apparently I got the abductor muscle wrong. I thought the abductor muscle was in your stomach because I was thinking about abs. I didn't do well at biology either. Maths and biology I've been exposed this weekend. But I'm good at Fortnite. If you saw that yesterday, bloody hell. I don't know what happened. I don't know whether it was luck or whatever. But it's actually in your hip, the abductor muscle on the thigh. It's a primary hip abductor muscle around the arse and that sort of area, apparently. So that's the muscle that apparently the Anana injury involves. And apparently, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Nathan says, also a win for iShowSpeed for the 500, and he also gave 4K on the actual page of the charity website. Such a nice lad. Did he do that 4K on the... Right, okay, well, that massive shout out to him. We had a $4,000 donation on the Just Giving page right towards the end. Nathan, I hope you're not... I'm going to find out whether that's true, because I don't want the person who did, because that was an anonymous contribution. So, you know, there might be somebody out there that did that anonymously. But if he did do, I'm going to get in contact with him, because that was amazing. He really did make a big difference to us to knock us past 50,000. So lovely stuff there. What a legend. Lovely guy. You know I love Speed, the person. Right, I want to talk to you next about this. This is the thing that's got me excited this morning. It was basically a story that came out yesterday in relation to Adrian Ursi, who saved Nice from relegation in 2021, and was Patrick Vieira's former assistant, who's shed a light on the way Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos conduct their business behind the scenes. So this is an interview with somebody who has given us an insight into what it's like to be managed or run by Sir Jim Ratcliffe. So I was very interested in this when it came out yesterday. I thought this is a perfect story to bring into the morning show. Don't forget, we've got some comments coming out from Bruno as well in relation to a player he'd like to see signed for United, and what happened with Saudi Arabia in the summer. So this is what was said by Adrian Ursia, is it? I think that's what I said his name is. Anyway, former coach at Nice, saved them from relegation in 2021. And this is what they had to say. The biggest difference was the club became certain there would no longer be problems with money, Ursia said. The first time I was there was huge financial problems, but once Ineos arrived, they went. I saw Jim sometimes, but he only visited training sessions once or twice, not more. We never felt the pressure about Sir Jim, because in this period I saw much more of his brother Bob. I only saw Sir Jim 3 or 4 times overall. It was clear that the big boss of the first team during that situation was our director of football, Julien Fournier. He goes on to say that he remains, for all Radcliffe's billions, he remains indebted to Romanian coach Ursia, who was tasked with preserving Nice's top-flight status following the sacking of Patrick Vieira in December 2020, and they had a good relationship. He says, after I left, Ineos began spending more money on transfers. They spent around 60 million euros in the market before the club wouldn't even permit a transfer that cost more than 5 million or 6 million euros. Nice started to have the power to spend up to 15 million euros on players because with Ineos the money was there. It was very important to save the situation. Relegation would have been a catastrophe for the club, and maybe Ineos would have left. I honestly don't know. I'm very proud that we saved the situation with our players, staff and president, because it was a really, really difficult period. In Nice in general, there's a widespread concern among supporters that their beloved club may suffer in the light of the news that Ratcliffe is now about to buy Manchester United. But Ineos are in Switzerland with Luzon, and they're still committed with the life of the club. They are businessmen, but beyond that, they nominate the specialist people who will know that's truly going on inside the football club. I think it was the same with Manchester United as in Nice. They want to construct a galaxy like Red Bull or the City Football Group. Sir Jim is a businessman and a business person, and I think he loves Manchester United. So it's interesting there. This is, there's all sorts. I like, you know what I like? I like to get genuine comments on genuine situations. If you get a player talking about a transfer, it doesn't get any better than that. If their agent talks about it, it doesn't get any better than that. If the club talk about it, it doesn't get better than that. Obviously, you get opinion, and we're all entitled to opinion. But I think when you've got somebody that was actually a coach under Sir Jim Ratcliffe in them early days at Ineos, I found that interview fascinating because there's 2 real takeaways from there. First of all, Sir Jim wants to build a group like Red Bull and the Man City group, which, as we know, has 4 or 5 clubs at least, or within a group that works together. I mean, you look at Salzburg to Leipzig. How many players have gone from Salzburg to Leipzig? Bloody loads. Look at Sesko, who went from Salzburg to Leipzig for no money at all. And yet, if they'd sold him to Man United, it would have been 50 million instead of 25 million. So this will obviously be why, one of the reasons I know that Todd Ebo will sign for Manchester United. It's Nice to Manchester United. I don't know whether this is the way football should be going. I've never been quite comfortable with it, but logically, it was the way football always was going to go. Because the big clubs like the Man Cities and the Chelseas, they have huge squads, and they haven't got enough games to satisfy that squad of talent. So they traditionally would loan them out to championship clubs. But if you've got feeder clubs around Europe that you can send them to, you're basically farming your players out and creating this big franchise, I suppose. And Man City are doing that. And obviously other clubs are doing that. So I think that this will probably happen with Manchester United and Sir Jim Radcliffe. We've got a club in Switzerland. He has got a club in Switzerland. He's got Nice. Manchester United, I think there'll be more added to that. So it looks like that's going to happen. And that's the way football's heading as well. But also the interesting thing was that he said that when he was manager of Nice, he didn't really see Sir Jim Radcliffe that often, maybe once or twice on the training ground. Saw his brother Bob a lot, but basically it was left to the director of football. Now this feeds lovely into what I was talking about on Friday night, that I'm very, very interested in Blanc becoming our CEO, and it sounds like he will become our CEO. But when you look at his CV and you look about what people say about Blanc, he is no doubt one of the elite CEOs in football out there. And that's exactly what Man United should be recruiting. But if he's going to take that job, he has to be the boss. Rightly or wrongly, Ed Woodward, David Gill, Richard Arnold were the boss of Manchester United. It wasn't Joel Glazer. The Glazers stuck their nose in, but they didn't run the day-to-day of the club. Richard Arnold did that. Ed Woodward did that. David Gill did that. And that's the way any CEO should work. You just need the right people to do it. So Blanc, if he's the CEO, should run that football club. The director of football, the manager, everybody should be reportable to him, and he should set the vision and tone for the football club. So I'm quite encouraged to hear from that Nice coach saying that that's what happened when he was there. Julien Fournier, wasn't it, was the CEO. He was the guy who ran the football club. We didn't really hear much from Sir Jim Radcliffe. What you need is a structure. And Man United are it's all the players, about the structure. When you look at Manchester United, we need a structure, a reporting line. You'd want Blanc running the club on a day-to-day basis as the boss and the visible boss. You'd want your sporting director and everybody else reporting to him, and Ten Hag to the sporting director, the players to Ten Hag, and that goes up in a footballing sense to Blanc. And then Blanc privately is reporting to Sir Jim Radcliffe, Joel Glazer, Sir David Brailsford. That's what we want to happen. And that's what I hope is going to happen. So I found that article quite fascinating because it gave two big indicators of probably what's going to happen to Manchester United with Sir Jim in charge. And Ash says it's boring. Well, Ash, I didn't know you had a finer knowledge of what's been going on at Nice for the last few years. So apologies for Ash in the chat. Apparently he knew all this about how Nice was run because he probably lives next door to Adrian Urcia, and he told him about it 2 years ago. Maybe you could have shared that with us, Ash, because I certainly didn't know how Nice had been run over the last couple of years, and I certainly didn't know that Sir Jim didn't really have much involvement, and then it was left to the director of football, and that we're probably going to look at a model like RB Leipzig and the Red Bull Group and the Man City Group. But Ash already knew, so apologies for Ash there. You could have gone back to bed and watched Saturday Kitchen or something, couldn't you? Sorry to repeat something you already knew, Ash. Bloody prat. But yeah, no, I'm encouraged by the CEO news around Blanc. Let's see what happens with that. I'm encouraged that if that happened at Nice, that the CEO was allowed to run the football club. That we don't want too many cooks spoiling the broth, as I said on Friday. As for the RB group and the City group and Man United copying that, I don't know about that, but that's the way football's going. Duckbury, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. You're a legend. And thanks everyone who's tuning in. Get your comments in, of course, and smash a like on the video. So interesting story that. What else have we got to bring you this morning? Absolutely loads. We've got the stuff about Bruno. I don't know why. Oh, that's frustrating. That's shut itself down. I will come back to that. Don't worry. There was something about there that I needed to come back to you. Bruno Fernandez has been talking to the press on international duty. This is not unusual. Initial indications on Onana, by the way, are that are ones of optimism. This is from Fabrizio Romano. It's a shoulder problem, but doesn't look like a serious one. Onana is expected to be fit for the upcoming games for Manchester United. So that's from Fabrizio, which is probably about as good as it gets. And the Onana injury doesn't look like it's going to be as bad as some might have feared with him. I mean, this international duty stuff is terrifying, really, isn't it? Just on Bruno Fernandez, though, I don't know whether you saw this yesterday. There was one of these like data sets that came out. These graphs that go like that, and they have like upward progressive passes per 90 and a key passes per 90, and then they plot players there comparable to the two. So if you're crap at progressive passes and you're crap at key passes, you'll be right down near the bottom. And if you're very good at it, you'll be matched up at the top. So Bruno Fernandez is basically the best in the Premier League for this, with key passes per 90 and progressive passes per 90. He's like way out in front. Cole Palmer's a little bit close to him, James Maddison, Rodri, but Bruno Fernandez for key passes and progressive passes per 90 is the A-star player in the Premier League. He's way out there in front. The worst player in the Premier League is actually Scott McTominay. Even Havertz isn't worse than him. So, yeah, it's a bit of a contrast there, isn't it? But we know, I mean, look, we're not picking... I mean, Casemiro's pretty good at progressive passes per 90, but he's not great at key passes, but he's a holding midfielder. McTominay's bloody terrible at it. Bruno's superb at it. I don't read into that too much because stats can be deceiving, but we know Bruno has this amazing ability to create chances, and it shouldn't be forgotten. With McTominay, he scores goals in the penalty box. I've got no problem with McTominay getting praise at the moment because he does score goals in the penalty box. Outside of the penalty box, we've seen it all before. We know what McTominay's weaknesses are. He's not a particularly good midfielder. He's good at getting in the box and scoring goals, but apart from that, pretty damn average, isn't he? We know that. But Bruno is fantastic in relation to that. Bruno Fernandez has been speaking to the press around what's going on at Manchester United and what's going on with him. Now, remember that we were linked to... he was linked to Saudi Arabia in the summer. This is what I had to say. I'm happy where I am. I'm focused on Manchester United. I don't look at the rumours, and I also don't pay attention to them. Today, it's very easy to spread rumours in the press. I prefer to concentrate on my goals. He also had said that he's fully focused on the national team and Man United, and I'm happy where I am in the national team. We've had some very good times. At Manchester United, we didn't start the way I wanted to start, but I don't look at these rumours and I don't pay attention. He did acknowledge that there was some sort of contact in the summer, but, it's not something that he's looking at. And I think we were aware of that in the summer anyway. But he did speak about João Neves at Benfica. Remember the young holding midfielder that we got linked to in the week? I mean, I don't think we can do this deal because of the cost it would do to Manchester United. But he did say this about him, Bruno. He says, it's up to the manager to decide. It depends on the manager and his ideas. But what an excellent player and a great guy. Very professional, who will have a great future wherever he is. I would love to have him by my side because he's talented and he will have a bright future. But it's up to him. What I want most is the best for him. And that's on João Neves from Bruno Fernandez. I mean, look, I do like that João Neves story a lot. I liked it a lot last week. I think he's going to, potentially be one of the best holding midfielders in Europe over the next 3 or 4 years. And I'd absolutely love him to sign for Manchester United. But I do not think it's going to happen. Even though you've got Bruno Fernandes, who would be massively influential on a player like that as a young player in the Portuguese squad, and you've got Bruno Fernandes there, who would be held up as one of the leaders. But I just don't see United being able to do those sort of deals anymore. I just don't see it. I don't think we've got the money to go and do that. His release clause is ridiculous. Benfica always get really, really good fees, and I just don't think United are that. If the Glazers had gone and it was somebody coming in, clearing the debt, pumping billions in, maybe that's the sort of deal that you do. But what I did like about what Bruno said is the personality, the character of this young player. I think that's something wherever we're going to recruit from, we've got to be so focused on that because we clearly have such a problem with that at Manchester United. And I feel that if we get that wrong, then we're going to keep making these mistakes. And it goes back to what we were talking about Griezmann, doesn't it? I mean, Griezmann is the wrong player for Manchester United to sign. And it's interesting because it's coming down here. Would you take Griezmann at United? Yes, 43%. No, 57%. So it's not a landslide yes, and it's certainly not a landslide no. It's more 50-50. But I look at that, that's worrying, but that's football. That's the way this channel works. That's the way it should work. That everybody's entitled to a different opinion. My issue with Griezmann is coming towards the end of his career. Didn't want to come here a few years ago. Where's the hunger? Where's the passion? Is he the right sort of player? Has he got the right sort of mentality? If Griezmann comes into this team and we start losing games, is he really going to be the guy in the dressing room that lifts the team and focuses it? Or is he going to go, I'm here, I'm making my money, I'm not that interested? And at some point, we've got to ignore the shiny things and start going for a rebuild that actually makes sense. But some people will disagree with that, and that's absolutely fine. But I look at that United team and I think we need to start going down the Brighton route. Not buying like Brighton do, but there's a player. There's an identikit player for Manchester United. And if I was recruiting for Manchester United, I'm not just looking for passion and I'm not just looking for talent. I think United's squad at the moment, you've got a few players who aren't good enough but will always give everything. And you've got a few players who are good enough but won't give everything. And I don't need to name names, but that is where Man United have failed massively over the last decade. We've got players that some of our fans think are good enough, but that aren't good enough, but give everything for the shirt. And then we've got players that some of our fans think we should get rid of, but they are good enough, but they don't have the passion. And that's the problem. And I can think of 5 players that have got the talent but can't be asked. And I can think of 5 players that haven't got the talent but will always give everything. And that's why we're inconsistent, because the players that will give everything aren't good enough to win every week. And the players that are good enough but won't give everything don't give everything every week. And it's the simplest explanation of Manchester United's problem in a couple of sentences. The inconsistency that we are baffled by is actually very, very simple to explain. The players that aren't good enough can't be consistent, but they'll give everything. And the players who are good enough can't do it every week because they don't give everything. So we won't be consistent. What we need to do is fuse that together with recruitment. We need to buy players that are good enough and give everything. And you see it at Liverpool, and you see it at Arsenal, and you see it at Man City, and you see it at Bayern Munich. Those players do exist, but we need to recruit them. So when we scout a good player, we've got to be looking at their mentality. We've got to look at their ability to stay fit. We've got to look at their ability over a course of a season and how many bad games they have. And then you've got to go and buy those players. And some of those players will be not obtainable because of price. So you've got to go and pick them up from leagues that other people aren't looking at, maybe. You've got to have really, really, really good recruitment. And that's what it comes down to. I would sell Rashford and Anthony, says David. Swap Griezmann for Mount, says ICAM. Correct, we need both in all players, says Kaft. Even Ferguson should play with Liverpool, says John. Well, this is the United channel. How about Rabiot? He's decent, says MC. Well, we've tried to get Rabiot for the last 2 years. I don't think it's going to happen. Sally Devil Red 7, one of our moderators, says bringing in ageing mercenary players on ridiculous wages has to stop. Well, yeah, because I think those players fall into the category of definitely good enough, but not going to be doing it every week because they're dropping off or they're not motivated as much as they were in their prime. So yeah, they're not the right player. They're not. But Griezmann, for me, as unfair as it is, would fall into the category of a lot of the players we've got at this football club who are definitely good enough but won't do it every week because the consistency's gone. Would you like João Palhinha at Man United, says Spoiled Ballot Papers? I would. I think he's probably a little bit older than I would want. He's into his sort of late 20s now, but I certainly think he's a better player than Fulham, with all due respect, and I think he'd be a really, really, really good player. There's plenty of good players out there. You've just got to recruit better. Any news about João Neves? He looks a good for the future with Mainu, says Jason. Literally just spoke about him 5 minutes ago. Bruno was saying he'd like to have him at United, but I think it's probably too much money. Just on the January transfer window, by the way, I wouldn't move your attention away from centre-back. If we're going to do anything in January, and I think we're all very aware that the January transfer window isn't necessarily the transfer window where things do happen. At Manchester United, I think if we're going to do anything in January, it will be around the centre-back position. We do want a forward. Maybe there's a loan deal that can be done. I don't know what's available, but it'll be a stopgap. It'll be a plaster. It won't be a firm replacement long term. But I think if we're going to do anything, it'll be a centre back. I know Fabrizio was talking about Jonathan Tah maybe leaving in the summer, but he's not. He's at Leverkusen and he's not really a player that United are necessarily looking at. Todibo is the most obvious one. As I say, if Man United don't do that deal, I'll be stunned. It's just whether they do it in January, June or July. But the priority in January will be a centre-back. I wouldn't dismiss the fact that Rafael Varane could still go to Saudi Arabia in January. But I don't see United doing anything else. We've got a lot of players that will be coming back around late December, January. Luke Shaw, Martinez, Casemiro. Mainu will come back into the equation, I think, over the next few weeks. So I don't see us doing anything in the midfield. We've still got Amrabat all season. So we won't do anything in the midfield. I would say Ten Hag probably would like to do something in the midfield, but he's got a lot of midfielders. We do need somebody in the midfield, but the problem Ten Hag will have is when he goes to the board and say, I want a midfielder, they'll go, well, hold on a minute. You've got Christian Eriksen, you've got Bruno Fernandez, you've got Scott McTominay, you've got Mason Mount, you've got Casemiro, you've got Amrabat, you've got Mainu, you've got Mabry. Just because those 8 players aren't performing well, you've got 8 options there. We're not buying a midfielder in January, so you need to do something with that. You've bought some of those players. You can crack on. So he won't get a midfielder. He might get something in the striker area, but having said that, what are you going to get in January other than a loan? And a loan's never really going to support Højlund, and you've still got Martial and Rashford can play up front, and we've got a lot of wingers. At centre-back, I think he's got a case to say, look, this has had a big problem. It's had a big impact on the start of the season. You've got Varane, who's very injury-prone. You've got Martinez, who's missed half the season. Johnny Evans is 35. Which leaves me with Lindelof and Maguire, who I was going to sell one of them in the summer. I probably do need a little bit of support at centre-back. Long term, there's an option there, and it's Todibo. So we could be in a situation where we don't do anything in January, and we must always acknowledge that as Manchester United fans. We know that United do and have ignored in the past. But if we're going to do something, I think it'll be around centre-back. And it goes back to that interview with the former Nice coach about this RB group or the Man City group, and one of the big advantages of that is if there is a deal with Sir Jim and Manchester United and he owns Nice, then there's not a lot UEFA or the Premier League can do about Man United signing Todibo from Nice for 25 million quid at a reduced price because that ownership's there. And if United don't take advantage of that, then they're foolish. And if they do take advantage of that, then they shouldn't be called out because Leipzig and Salzburg have been doing it for years, and therefore why shouldn't we do it? So I think that deal will happen. As I said a few weeks ago, June, July or January. Whether we need to do that deal in January, I would do it in January. And the reason I'd bring Todibo in January is because I'd look at the Vidic effect. It's difficult to adjust to the Premier League at the best of times. But if you come in January and then you get that 4 months adjustment and then you have a summer break and then you come back for the new season, I think it works quite well. We did it with Everett and Vidic when we brought them in, and I think that would work quite well. But it will depend on Nice. They're having a good season, and it will depend on Todibo and whether he wants to wait till the summer with the Euros coming up and wants stability at Nice. Because if he comes in to Manchester United in January and he's on the bench because Maguire and Lindelof and Varane and Martinez are doing well, then he's not playing, and it could impact his Euros hopes with France. So, yeah, be interesting to see. Do you think we're going to get Modric? I mean, look, the one thing about Manchester United is you'd say not, but then you'd never say never with Manchester United. What about Mbappe? Well, don't talk to me about international football. It's absolutely shite, absolutely rubbish, and I've got no interest in it. But Mbappe to Manchester United, I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, I think maybe if we'd been bought by Qatar, there could have been some sort of deal there. But yeah, I mean, I'd welcome Mbappe at Manchester United. Of course I would. I think he's the best player in the world. But realistically, next to no chance. And also, would create huge problems for Manchester United, because where does he play? His best position for me is off the left, which is where Rashford plays. Man United's biggest priority is to solve the Marcus Rashford issue with Marcus Rashford as soon as possible. We spoke about this in depth yesterday, so I'm not going to talk about it massively, but whether you like Rashford or you don't like Rashford, we have to solve that problem, because we're committed to it and he's committed to Manchester United, so we've got to do it. Simple as that. Big shout out to our new Christmas jumper designs. I'm wearing one today. I'll wear the other one this evening, but I love it. This is probably my favourite one at the moment. Obviously, we've sold out of the knitted ones, but I'm loving this. I think I'll be wearing this to the Christmas drinks because it's fantastic. And we do ship worldwide. They are all available in different colours. I'm just modelling it in black here. And we've got this one as well, which I'm going to wear later. Probably wear it on the 8 o'clock show. Ho ho Hoyland. There we go. And that's available. Merry Rasmus. They're all available worldwide, and we've got them in different colours as well. So get your orders in for Christmas. 19th of November now. It's moving, isn't it? Swap deal for Rashford for Mbappe, says V. If I speak. I mean, that's not going to happen, is it? I mean, if you're giving me an option about swapping Rashford for Mbappe, you're swapping the best player in the world for Marcus Rashford. So I think I know what a lot of people would do. It'd be a little bit like saying, should we swap? I'm trying to think. Should we swap a player that we like for somebody who's one of the best players in the world? Who's the best player? Who are the top 5 best players in the world at the moment? I struggle with that at the moment. I think Mbappe, Erling Haaland's at City, I don't want him. Salah's at Liverpool, so I don't want him. Would you swap Saka for Antony? Of course you would. Would you swap Jude Bellingham for Bruno Fernandez? Of course I would. It's not offensive to Rashford to say I'd swap him for Mbappe, and it's not offensive for me to say that I'd swap Bruno for Bellingham. Vinicius Junior, would I swap him for Garnacho? I probably would, and I love Garnacho. There are certain players that I think you just got to go, well, it doesn't matter how loyal or how much I like the Man United player. Of course, I'm going to swap them for that. But Musiala, would you swap him? Look, I'd swap Rodri for Casemiro at the moment, because I think Rodri is the best holding midfielder in the world, and Casemiro isn't. So I would do that, but that's not going to happen, and I'm very loyal to Casemiro. But if you're saying let's swap Mbappe for Rashford, well, I think Mbappe is the best player in the world, and I can see that as a Man United fan. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for tuning in this morning. I'm going to be back on the Sunday show tonight. A bit of a rest today. My throat needs a bit of a rest, and I think we all need a bit of a rest after yesterday if you're involved. But thanks everyone for watching. Would you swap Kane for Højlund? I'm not answering that one. I don't care what the logic is. I'm not answering that. That's too far. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you get your comments in below. You're absolute legends. Check out the Christmas jumpers below as well. A couple of new designs are out, and we do ship worldwide. And there was something else. Oh yeah, just legends, absolute legends. That yesterday was absolutely amazing. So thank you very, very much for all of that. And I'll speak to you all soon. Take care.